So the Super NES Classic is out, and let's face it, this little guy has been the buzz of everybody. It's been a wonderful weekend for everybody who managed to get their hands on one, and hopefully everybody did get a chance to grab one that could. And if you didn't, stay patient. I know more of them are coming, but that started to raise up another discussion that I think is a pretty fun one to really kind of speculate and fantasize about. So one of my friends on Twitter was talking about the potential of the future of the Classic Edition line, and of course we got into the subject of a potential Nintendo 64 Mini, like an N64 Classic Edition. What would become of it? Like, what would really come around? What kind of games would be on it? Would they even consider doing it? And in my opinion, it's pretty inevitable. I think Nintendo has the potential to make the Classic Edition a full line of consoles spanning from everything: NES, Super NES, Nintendo 64, Game Boy, Game Boy Advance, Game Boy Color. I think the possibilities are endless, really, out of this. But looking at the N64, the subject of an N64 Mini isn't really a new subject per se. It's been talked about for quite a while. It's like, hey, will Nintendo do it? Should Nintendo do it? And so today, I kind of wanted to take a look at, should Nintendo bring out an N64 Mini? And if they do, how should they do it? What kind of games should be on it? And what's the future? I'm G, and this is the Muse. So first off, if Nintendo were to make an N64 Mini, how should they go about doing it? Well, the NES Classic was a pretty sizable success, albeit with short stocking issues. The Super NES Classic, I mean, it's only been the first weekend, but so far so good. I mean, it looks like it was pretty healthy inventories. If you were in line, you were able to get one, and Nintendo says, hey, they're gonna make more. As far as an N64 Mini, how should they really go about it? Because let's look at it this way. The N64 is kind of subjectively not quite as popular as the NES and the Super NES, so I'm wondering really what's kind of the inventory or sort of the limitations of what that could possibly be. But let's say if Nintendo was to make an N64 Mini. I think personally, because the N64, if you really think about it, the N64 was a multiplayer focused console. I mean, there are very few, I mean, there were some single player games. There were quite a few iconic single player games, of course, but you could tell from the very beginning, Nintendo's kind of focus was multiplayer. They put 4 controller ports right on the front of the console to really kind of specify, hey, this is a family console. This is one to just have couch co-op, gather your friends, sit around and have a good time. I think that Nintendo did the right thing with the Super NES Classic, actually putting in 2 controllers instead of it having just one and trying to buy a separate controller, because anybody who's familiar with the NES Classic knows exactly how well that went. The controller was even rarer to get than the console. Good luck trying to get one of those now, but we'll see. Hopefully they get reprinted in 2018 as well. So here's how I think Nintendo should pack it. I think just right from the start, I think it should just go ahead and toss in 4 controllers. Because it's got 4 controller ports, just go ahead and box it in with all 4, and that way they don't have to worry about having to deal with third-party controllers or anything like that. It's already built in. You don't have to worry about trying to hunt for another controller. It's already ready to go. And considering how many of the marquee titles on the N64 are up to 4 players, I'd say that's a done deal. If they aren't going to do that, I would say at least pack one in with 2 controllers. And then if you are going to do the controllers separately, Nintendo, make sure they are readily available, that you can get them. If not, then the third-party market is just going to completely run ragged over that, and that's money that they would lose. So I think they should just totally do that. Either pack it in with 4 controllers off the bat or 2 controllers. So let's say the N64 is boxed, it's got 4 controllers, it's a done deal. What kind of colors should it come with? Should they even make them in multiple colors at all? In my opinion, and in short, no. I don't think it's a good idea purely because stocking-wise is already an issue for these Classic Edition consoles, and having them come out in multiple colors I think would just create even more problems as far as the stocking-wise goes. If they were planning to do it in multiple colors, I think it probably would be wise to do them in like a limited edition fashion. As much as I don't really like this practice, it probably would be smart for them to do it as like retailer exclusives. It's like, say the red one is a GameStop exclusive because they're black and red. You see, they make a gold one that's a Amazon exclusive or something like that. A yellow one is a Best Buy exclusive. Was there a yellow N64? I don't know. I don't think there was. But anyway, I'd say that if they were to do it in multiple colors, do it in that fashion. But even then, I don't really think that's a great idea at all. I think that they should just do it in just the standard black and go with that. That way they can focus on that and get the product out there. And how many games should it come with? So the NES Classic came with 30 games. The Super NES Classic came with 20 games plus Star Fox 2, so it really came with 21 games. I've already kind of talked about how kind of disappointed I was that they only put 20 games on the Super NES Classic. I feel for that one they could have at least added up to 30. I think 30 is a good solid number. I think it was great for the NES Classic. I think they could have done that. Now, as far as the N64 goes, I think putting it at 20 is a good thing. Here's why I think 20 is a good thing, is because, say we go with my original idea of having 4 controllers. If they actually come with 4 controllers, putting it on 20 games would save them a little bit of money. That way it'll keep the cost low. So you get all the controllers and you get 20 good games. And another thing, in my opinion, I think it's kind of tough to really think of 30 good, solid games that Nintendo could possibly get the rights to put on the N64, because there are some games that I think that many people would want on the N64 Mini that there's literally no way that they could probably get it on there. But we'll talk about that a little bit later once I get into the games. But in short, I would say 20 games, 4 controllers. Price-wise, should it be? That's the other thing, is that the NES Classic was $60. The Super NES Classic was $80. I think that with 4 controllers and 20 games, I'd probably say 100 to 120, somewhere around that. I mean, I would pay 120 for it, but I would probably say, and you know, feel free and let me know what your thoughts are on this. I think 100 is probably the bar. That's probably the bar. I don't think anybody would really want to spend more than 100 on an N64 Mini. I mean, what do you think? I know I would solidly pay 100. I'd probably pay 120 if it came with all 4 controllers. But I mean, if this were to become a thing, again, this is all just speculation talk. If this were a thing, I think that would probably be a good solid price point. So games. What games should be on a Nintendo 64 Classic Edition? What games should be on an N64 Mini? Well, let's say they go with 20. If they decide to go with 20, let's just go ahead and get the gimmies out of the way, the surefire games. Super Mario 64, Dr. Mario 64, Mario Kart 64, Zelda Ocarina of Time, Zelda Majora's Mask, Star Fox 64, Mario Party, and I'd say just one of them, preferably Mario Party 3, Donkey Kong 64, Kirby 64, and F-Zero X. So now let's talk about some that might be a little bit more offbeat decisions on that. So what are some games that I think may or may not make it, that aren't surefire ones to make it to N64 Mini, that I think should be on there? Let's start with the elephant in the room, Super Smash Bros. Now, I didn't put Super Smash Bros. On the gimme list because while I feel that it should be on there, and I totally agree that I think the Super Smash Bros. Should be a part of an N64 Classic, but the reason why I think that they may kind of hesitate about doing that would be because of the current state of the fan base. The N64 version has those nostalgia ticks, but they don't really like playing it anymore. When Melee is out there and the Wii U version is out there, poor Brawl, it always gets forgotten. But with those versions out there, I mean, there really shouldn't be to them much reason. But let's face it though, for the majority of the big audience, for the general audience, I think Super Smash Bros. It's a must. They definitely need to put that on there. So here's a good one, Excitebike 64. Now, this is another one of my personal favorites on N64, but I really don't hear a lot of people talk about Excitebike anymore. It's like Excitebike kind of came around and then it fell, and then they made it on the N64, and I thought it was great. I thought it was a great game. But then after that, it just kind of got forgotten until the random, what was it, Excite Truck on the Wii, and then Excitebots, that was weird. So I think Excitebike 64 would be a good choice because it hits those nostalgia peaks, it puts you right back into a Nintendo franchise, and I think it would be a good solid choice. Pokemon. Now, there has to be a Pokemon game on the N64. And even though there wasn't really a traditional Pokemon game on the N64, I'd say really the smartest one I think that they should put on there would be Pokemon Snap. So Pokemon Snap seems to be a good fit for the N64 Mini. I think it's because it's still aged well, you don't need any special attachments, it's not anything off the random. It feels like a Pokemon game, and especially since it involves just the original 151, and that's about it, I think that would hit really well for the N64 Classic Edition. Plus, I think they really need to make a new Pokemon Snap. Like, seriously, make a new Pokemon Snap with the Switch and whatnot. Because if you think about the other Pokemon games that came out, Pokemon Stadium 1 and 2, I think the big draw on those is being able to import your Pokemon and do battle with them, and you can't really do that on the N64 Mini. There's not going to be any expansion ports on it, please. Those I don't think would be the best choice. And what's left? Pokemon Puzzle League, which with Dr. Mario 64 is kind of a dead giveaway. I think that Pokemon Puzzle League, I don't think it would be a good choice, because for something that only has 20 games, I really think you only need one puzzle game, and Dr. Mario 64 is definitely the better choice out of the two. And then what? Hey You Pikachu? Please. Waverace 64, that would be an excellent addition, because again, another franchise that was big on the N64 that just kind of came and fell after that. Even though it started on the Game Boy, yeah, I'm aware of that, but Waverace 64 was really the pinpoint. It was the start of the franchise. It was a blast. It was a lot of fun. The graphics were great. The music was great. The multiplayer was excellent. It was so much fun. I mean, the GameCube version was a little bit of a disappointment. I would say, yeah, Waverace 64 is another good solid addition. So one of the first franchises to really come around on the N64 was the Cruisin series. Cruisin USA, Cruisin Exotica, those were fantastic games, and I think that for the most part, even though they might not have aged the best, I think that would be another good nostalgia tick, a good way to really hook the people in that got their first start at the diehard N64 fans. And Cruisin's still around today, and since Nintendo is still kind of putting Cruisin out there, I think having Cruisin USA or Cruisin Exotica, that would actually be a good choice to add to the lineup. And just kind of throwing this out there, the new game that just came out to the arcade, was it Cruisin Blast, I think is the name of it? Nintendo, put that on the Switch. So there really weren't many RPGs on the N64, and so I think Paper Mario would be a good solid fit on that. Now, this one might also get into the gimme category because, you know, it's Mario, so there's probably a good solid chance that it's going to be on there. But because that one's a little bit more, it's a lot different, I guess I would say, than what we were used to from Super Mario RPG or traditional RPGs. It may or may not get thrown on there, but I think it totally should. It was a beautiful game, it was a lot of fun to play, and that would fill the RPG void of on the N64 Mini, because there weren't many other RPGs that came out for it. There was, what, Ogre Battle 64, which that would be a great addition, but who knows if they would get that in, what, Quest 64? No, there really wasn't much. So yeah, Paper Mario, absolutely. Yoshis Story. Now, this one, I know that this game, and I know I use this word a lot in this channel, polarizing. I think that Yoshis Story is a very polarizing game. Most people that I talk to say they either absolutely love it, or they hate it, they think it's terrible, or they think it's charming and endearing. I'm more on the charming and endearing side. It's like, yeah, there are a few aspects of it that weren't great, especially compared to, say, Yoshi's Island on the Super Nintendo, but going with key marquee games, the franchise. Yoshi is part of the franchise. Yoshis Story should be on there. One thing I noticed about the Super NES Classic is that it didn't have any sports games, which I thought that was kind of weird, because even on the Super Nintendo, there were some great sports games, but I wonder if maybe it had to do with licensing, or they just felt like, hey, this wouldn't be a fit on that. Ken Griffey Jr., I think, would have been a great addition to that. So that being said, I think that one good sports game should actually make it to the list, and I'm going to go with 1080 Snowboarding. So 1080 Snowboarding was perfect for the time period, and you know, it was right in the stage of the 90s where everything was rad and tuned and totally awesome, you know, all that fun stuff that we still can't seem to get over. But 1080 Snowboarding was just a good, solid, fun game. Fast-paced, beautiful graphics. It was just so much fun. It was one of the first real extreme sports games to kind of come around in that era, and so it's iconic in that sense. And since Nintendo doesn't really seem to do snowboarding games anymore, or even really care about 1080, I think that they should totally put that on the N64 Mini. So switching things up with a third-party game, I think that Gauntlet Legends is a good choice, because again, the N64 is all about multiplayer, and what better arcade-style multiplayer game can you think of than Gauntlet? And just Legends, even though I think Dark Legacy is a better game, obviously there was no Dark Legacy on the N64, so Gauntlet Legends is close enough, and it was still a great game in its retrospect, and yeah, I think that would be a great choice as well. And last but not least, I think that to roll out this collection, gotta end it strong, I think that Nintendo should put The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time Master Quest. I think that absolutely needs to be on there. Kind of like how Star Fox 2 was the hook for the Super NES Classic, I think that the Master Quest would be an excellent hook, because I wonder, out of the millions, legions of fans out there that absolutely love Zelda Ocarina of Time, I think it's the greatest Zelda game, or hell, even the greatest game of all time, I wonder how many of those people have played Master Quest. I think that that would actually be an excellent decision to toss that on there as either the bonus game or even on the 20th game. I think that they totally should add it on there, so that way, and not only that, play it in HD. You know, I think that that's just a good, solid decision. They need to do that, absolutely. So here's kind of my fantasy pick out of all those, if you will. So if there was one game that I really wish Nintendo would even consider to put on an N64 Mini, it's probably not likely, but one game that I think totally should get on there is Sin and Punishment. This game actually did come out on the Wii Virtual Console, but considering that's going away in 2019, and a lot of people I think still haven't been exposed to the Sin and Punishment franchise, I think that this is an excellent decision. It's so heart-poundingly fast-paced, the graphics are great, the music was great, it's incredibly addictive. It did get a sequel on the Wii, but I think that this would be an excellent time to bring back Sin and Punishment, because it's a Nintendo franchise that got forgotten, and I think that it definitely deserves some more time in the light. I might do an episode on that later, but yeah, I think that for either a bonus game or maybe even on the Japanese version, I don't know, but I think it totally should. And if you aren't going to do Sin and Punishment, Nintendo, I think Mischief Makers should definitely make the cut. So yeah, those are 20 games that I think should be on the N64 Mini, should Nintendo decide to make one. Now, I know that many of you are already kind of thinking to yourself, hey, why not GoldenEye? Why not Banjo-Kazooie? Why not Killer Instinct? You're missing some key games, bro. But here's the thing, from a realistic standpoint, I'm sure many of you know, Nintendo doesn't own Rare anymore. Nintendo doesn't have the rights to the Bond franchise anymore. I'm pretty sure Activision is still sitting on it. But for those games to make it to the N64, they'd either have to attempt to try to get them, which is probably not going to happen, or pay a ridiculous amount of money for it. And honestly, it's just not going to happen. As much as I would love to see it, and it's sad because yes, those are truly iconic games on the N64, especially GoldenEye, it's just, unfortunately, it's not going to happen. So we just kind of gotta take what we can get, you know? So if Nintendo were to make an N64 Mini, what games do you think should be on there? I mean, do you have a list of 20 games in mind that you think should totally be included? Let me know in the comments, drop me a line, or you can even hit me up on social media on Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram at G to the Next Level. I want to see your fantasy booking, so tell me what Nintendo should put on the N64 Mini, and let Nintendo know, hey, we want this, and if you're gonna do it, these are the games that should be on there. It should come with 4 controllers or 2 controllers or whatever the case might be. Just do it, Nintendo. I know it's in your mind. I think you should totally do it. You'll make a lot of money. Just make enough of them. Don't buy from scalpers, people. And also, this is the first episode of the Muse, my series where I just kind of, hey, this is a subject, and I just kind of talk candidly about what my thoughts are on certain gaming subjects or whatnot. So if you enjoyed it, hey, let me know in the comments what you like, or maybe even what you disliked about it. And of course, leave a like and subscribe if you haven't yet. I'm G, this has been the Muse, and I'll see you on the next level.